By the Empire State Building, a man in a hat looks out towards the sea. The hustling and bustling of the crowd indicates that there are people huddled around, waiting for something. Among the crowd, there are two women with hopeful eyes, looking towards the checking officers. One of them is more nervous than the other, and the calm one, Yua, tells her sister Magda that they'll find her aunt soon and have a big, happy family. Regretfully, Magda coughs, and the officer checking the immigrant's passport stares at them for a bit. Suddenly an officer walks up to Magda and examines her, while Yua asks what is wrong. The officer apologizes and states that one of them has a lung disease, and even though they deny it, the officers lead Magda away, telling her sister that they will keep her in their infirmary for 6 months. And just like that, the two sisters get separated, with Yua screaming that she will find a way to get Magda out. People wait, sitting in a crowded place with numbers attached to their clothes. It seems as though these people are waiting to enter the USA as immigrants. Yua sits among the immigrants, while a man with gelled back hair and a coat eyes her. The other sister, who was deemed as healthy, goes to a counter and introduces herself as Yua, and that she's single and from Poland. The strict officer disregards her situation with her sister and continues questioning her about things like her occupation. He further interrogates her on her morals, saying that there was a complaint on board the transport which she traveled from, saying she was a woman with low morals, but she firmly refuses the accusation. She provides him with an address for her aunt and uncle, but the officer tells her that the address is not valid. He further states that they do let unescorted women into the country. She does not understand what is going on, but he asserts that they do not let any woman in, especially if she has low morals. He then stamps her paper with a stamp, telling her she will be called for a hearing and most likely deported. She loses her turn to speak, and just then, the scene changes to a man who gets up from his seat and exits. As Yua stands in line with other women, the man who was eyeing her appears. Later, the same man introduces himself as Bruno Weiss, from the Travelers' Aid Society, and asks each woman if they speak English. Yua steps up and says that she does, and Bruno asks the officer behind him of her status. He bids her good luck, but she stops him, asking for help. He tells her she is in the exclusion line, which means she will be sent back, but she stops him, desperately wanting to stay, and tells him that she can work. At her request, he asks for some time, and then walks away while talking to an officer. She wipes her tears furiously and waits for him to be back. Soon, he walks back to her and whispers in her ear that she is to board the last ferry leaving in 10 minutes, and that he will see her after she lands. The ferry to New York is loaded and she steps up with the man, who leads her down to the clustered ship. At the ship, she looks towards the sea with tearful eyes, telling the man that she left her sister. She then asks him if he knows a place to stay, and he agrees to take her there, because she has nowhere else to go. After they get to New York, he grabs her hand and leads her down a street inside a home. There is a little girl inside the house, who calls the man Mr. Bruno. He leads her down the room, telling her she can sew to earn a living. After that, he hands her a form, explaining that she has to fill it in order to receive aid. She quietly looks at him before examining the form. Something does not feel right to her. She then walks towards the man, who's sitting with the little girl, and tells him she'll be back for the sewing job. Bruno stops her, letting her know that it's dangerous out there. He apologizes for being rude, but he has to leave for some business. After saying that, he leaves. Yua walks to the girl and sits in front of her. The girl, Sonia, says she can tell Bruno likes her, but he is not her father, he merely stays across from her room. Yua hides a weapon under her pillow and goes to sleep, and a while later, wakes up with a jolt. From behind her, Bruno bids her good morning and hands her a letter about her sister. Yua finds out that her sister has tuberculosis. Bruno says he can bring Yua's sister here, but it will be costly. He says he will get Yua a job at the theater where he works, but she will need to shower first. The atmosphere of the house seems a bit peculiar as women peek from their doors at Bruno. At the bathhouse, the women of the rundown area clean themselves while Yua awkwardly stands there. A naked woman holds out her hand and hands her a banana, saying it's from Bruno. Yua does not know how to peel and eat it, and takes a bite of the peel, but the woman chuckles and helps her with it. The women there let her know that it will cost a lot to get her sister to safety, and she can either take part in prostitution or steal, or work at Bruno's. At Bruno's theater, Yua walks in and meets Bruno, who has her meet the owner, Rosie. Rosie compliments Yua and says she should be dancing, not sewing, but Bruno says that Yua could be special. At the dinner table, they eat together as Bruno eyes Yua, who quietly eats her share. He stands up and introduces Yua, then he makes a big speech about being a lucky man to have a family such as this, thanking Rosie for the spread. Two men walk in and sit at the table, asking if the pageant they have will be decent. They collect some money and have the guests bet on the winner. Yua cannot join, as she does not have anything. Each girl shows herself in order to be picked, and Yua snatches a bill from the hat secretly. At night, they walk back home and share a drink, but Yua politely refuses. Bruno tells her that he used to dance on the street for money, and then asks about the photograph she was looking at. She shows him the photo of her family and then her sister, Magda, and he comments on her beauty. After telling him how her parents lost their lives, Bruno tries to comfort her by hugging her, but she doesn't want to be touched. Suddenly, Bruno gets mad and begins shouting at her, yelling about all the favors he has done for her. He lets her know that he saw her stealing. He calls Belva into the room, and Yua is forced to give the money back. Belva only kisses her cheek and leaves. Bruno gives her a new job in the theater and says she will need to rehearse. The next day, Ziegfeld's theater is filled with clapping men, who view the women that are clad in clothes from different cultures. One by one, the ladies show themselves off, and Yua soon walks on stage as well, dressed as the Empire State Building. She is awkward, and it is apparent that she does not enjoy the hungry eyes staring at her as if she is an object. She is taken off stage, ready for the big show. The other females give her alcohol to drink, because Yua seems nervous, and have her sit alone. Backstage, Bruno sits with Yua, but he is interrupted by a man who brings his son, saying he needs to grow up. It is obvious that the man wants his son to have some experience with women. The man points at Yua, hinting that he wants her for his son. But Bruno tries to refuse the huge amount of money. He takes Yua back home, but as she wakes up from her drunken slumber, she sees the boy, Leo, has entered her room. Leo sits with her and tries to kiss her, but she refuses. Leo looks back at Bruno, who takes a moment with her. Bruno doesn't want her to do this either, but he says it is not up to them, because Yua cares about her sister and would do anything to get her here. Yua stops refusing and beckons for the boy, while Bruno gently kisses her feet and leaves. Leo returns this time, and gently reaches his hand out to touch her. Later on, Yua sits with food on her plate, but doesn't want to eat after what she did today. Bruno tries to get her to eat by telling her that he is the only one helping her, not her uncle and aunt. She refuses to listen to him, and makes sure that he knows that she hates him, and herself, for what she has done. On the way back home, he is drunk, and in his drunken stupor he opens the door, falling down in the process. Leaving him as he is, Yua runs inside hurriedly. Yua takes her bag quickly and rushes out the door, looking for her uncle and aunt. She walks hurriedly down the dangerous streets of New York, ignoring catcalls and men who want to get with her, and she finally arrives at a door. A woman lets her in, hugging her with love. From upstairs, Yua's uncle looks at her with surprise and relief. They offer her a tray with tea, asking where she has been. When they ask about her sister, Yua alerts them that she is at a hospital for lung disease. The two people look at her warmly, telling her that she is no longer alone. They drape a blanket over her and sing a lullaby in her ear, lulling her to sleep. In her dreams, Yua is with her sister on a sunny farm, having a picnic with Magda. She wakes up as two men come up to her, telling her that they must deport her. Turns out her uncle turned her into the police, because he does not want to ruin his own business. Yua's aunt screams at her husband, but he screams louder, making her quiet. He insults Yua and refuses to keep an illegal woman with him. She is taken back to the island and told that her hearing will be tomorrow. Yua takes her coat off, looking at herself in the mirror, as she slaps her cheeks to look healthier and wears her blood on her lips to look rosier. At night, during a show for the detainees, Yua hopes to see Magda there. She sits in the audience, watching a show featuring Orlando the magician. She looks around, trying to see her sister, while Orlando does his magic tricks. He rises from the ground as the crowd claps. Yua stands and walks to a girl who looks like her sister, but unfortunately it is not her. The girl looks at her weirdly, and Yua apologizes, quickly moving back to her seat. Meanwhile, Orlando the magician attempts a dangerous trick, proving himself to be an amazing showman. While thanking the crowd, he gives Yua a white rose, telling her she is beautiful. The next act is by Caruso, who sings an opera while Yua sits, sadness in her eyes. Orlando eyes her from afar, smitten by her beauty. She is back in her cell, but is woken by the opening of a door. It's Bruno. He asks if she has eaten, and tries to have her realize that she is to be deported. She grabs his coat, telling her that she wants more money. He agrees to give her half of what he makes, and soon they get out. The white rose sits by her bedside as she looks at the man she just slept with, asking him to dress warmly. It seems as though her life has taken a turn for the worse, and she has agreed to sell her. She walks down the street to the theater. There, she sees a man who seems to be Orlando, the same one who gave her the rose. But before she can look further, Bruno comes to give her the money she made. Bruno sees Orlando and expresses his anger at seeing him there. Bruno does not want a repetition of what happened before to happen again, but Rosie tells him that he has nothing to worry about. Orlando and Bruno meet and decide that they will keep it professional. At night, when the show starts, Orlando makes all the liquor sell, but for his last trick, he calls Yua over on stage, where she is insulted by the audience. The audience yell at her for being a cheap woman who would sell. She is taken off stage in a hurry while Bruno angrily continues the show. When Yua doesn't show for her act, Bruno runs backstage, and seeing Orlando with Yua, he becomes livid, getting in a fight with Orlando as they chase each other all around the theater. Rosie tries to break up the fight, and Bruno in his anger shouts at her as well. He tells her that he does not need the job. The outcome is that Bruno and his girls lose their jobs, having to quickly flee the scene before the cops come. The next morning, he takes his girls, Yua included, to a boarding house with all men, where they get with boys temporarily. Yua tells him that these boys don't even have money, but he says they have no choice. Yua meets a 15-year-old boy who leads her to a house. At first, Yua is terrified, because she thinks the teenage boy will bring his friends in, but much to her surprise, Orlando shows up. He bids her hello, and then apologizes for the way he had her insulted. They have a short conversation, after which he turns to leave, but Yua stops him. She mentions Ellis Island, but Orlando doesn't hold much influence there, not like Bruno. He looks around, reminiscing about the place they are at right now. He admits that Bruno is his cousin, and that they also came here on a boat, but Bruno changed. When asked how she started working for him, she says he brought her when her family here didn't want her. Orlando gives her a little hope, telling her she has the right to be happy. Bruno rushes back to the house after realizing that he was scammed by Orlando. Upon seeing his cousin, Bruno sits back, asks Yua to excuse them, and closes the door. Bruno takes a knife out while speaking to Orlando and tries to stab him. He evades the knife attack and defends himself using a cushion. Seeing this, Yua runs downstairs to get the police, and both men are taken into custody. Yua sits alone and sews clothes, and soon, Belva comes in crying, and says that they will keep Bruno till tomorrow, while Orlando gets to leave because he did not have a knife. Yua quietly mutters that she does not need Bruno. But Belva doesn't understand, further making her feel bad for everything that is going on, saying it is her fault. They bicker before Yua grabs a knife, threatening Belva with it. The other woman quiets down, and Yua leaves the room. She goes to the theater where Orlando is playing the piano. Handing him his scarf, she asks if he is going somewhere. He tells her that he is leaving on tour, and then gives her a postcard to where he is going, California. Surprisingly, he invites her along, but she refuses because her sister is on Ellis Island. She shows him a picture of Magda, and he wishes her good luck, understanding that she cannot go with him. He further tells her that Bruno might be in love with her, but she does not believe it. He hands her his good luck scarf, and she leaves after saying goodbye. Yua waits outside jail for Bruno's release, and upon meeting, they walk up to each other and he grabs her, walking back home. Bruno tells her that Orlando is harmful, because he had a girl once, but Orlando stole her. On Sunday, Yua goes to church and listens to the priest, praying for forgiveness. When it is her time to confess, she enters the box, while Bruno eavesdrops from outside. She confesses that she stole food, and tried to steal money. She confesses that some men forced themselves on her, and then called her a woman of low morals. She further explains that she uses her body for money, and that she knows she will not go to heaven. She tells the priest that she knows a man who can help her, but because of him, she will not go to heaven. The priest tells her she must leave the man, and after hearing all this, Bruno goes home. Back at home, Yua cuts potatoes, and hears a thud by the window. Orlando crawls in through the window. He explains that he made it to New Jersey, but he could not stop thinking about her. He asks where Bruno keeps the gun, and Yua points at the bedside table. Orlando lets her know that he won at gambling, and he can help her sister, and they can all head out west. She agrees to meet him tomorrow. Before leaving, he kisses her passionately. Just when Bruno comes home, Yua goes outside to greet him, and Bruno gently tells her that he will help her to see her sister. However, from behind them, Orlando walks up with the gun, bent on teaching Bruno a lesson. He points a gun at Bruno, forcing him to tell Yua that she can go. But right as he pulls the trigger, Bruno drives a knife into his cousin's body, murdering him. Yua cries hard as Bruno drags away Orlando's body. Bruno hides Yua, despite her saying that it is her own fault. A door is open, and one of Bruno's girls witness the entire scene. He takes the body of his cousin to the woods, dragging it across the floor as Yua follows, despite Bruno telling her to stay back. She begs him not to leave Orlando by the trash, but he says they have no choice. The next day, they go to their show as per usual, but suddenly the cops arrive, looking for Yua. Bruno runs with her, trying to hide her, and leads her down underground. He hides her and faces the police, who beat him up and take his money. They go home, battered and bruised, and Yua tends to him. Bruno tells her to leave, but she is adamant on not leaving without her sister. She says she will get the money back, and they agree to meet by the oxtail if she manages to get the money. Yua goes to her aunt's house and begs to let her in. Yua then asks her aunt if it is a sin that she is trying so hard to survive. Her aunt looks at her with discomfort, but Yua gets tearful and asks her for money from Magda. Having gotten the money, Yua goes to Bruno, and they descend together on a boat to Ellis Island, where Magda is. Once there, an officer leads them down the island to the infirmary, asking them to wait in a room. Bruno hands her tickets going from New Jersey to California, asking her to start a new life. Yua asks what Bruno will do, but he tells her that he will confess for his sins, while she can move on and live a new life. She earnestly thanks him, but he refuses to accept it, confessing that he is the one that made her life hell. Hearing all this, she punches him while crying, after which she hugs him. Her parting words for him are, "You are not nothing," something she also tells herself. From the window, she sees Magda running to her tearfully, and then leaves as Bruno staggers back, seeing the woman he fell in love with for the last time.